New York Times, the president does not regret debating Mr. Trump in June, an appearance that created a slow bleed in his support among Democrats and ended with his ouster. Mr. Biden has privately told allies that he only regrets not changing the timing because he had a cold and believes he would have performed better if he had been in better health.
That was not the problem. The bottom line is Joe Biden never should have run for re-election. This is someone who over the past 2 years really has struggled in public. I don't think putting his name on a check would have made one hill of beans here. The fact is the American people looked at this economy and said it's not working. They couldn't afford their grocery bills. They couldn't afford their mortgage bills. The average mortgage in my district went up $1,000 a month. That's over $12,000 a year under Joe Biden. So this was not a function of just handing out a check and hoping people say, yay, everything's great. The reality is people could not afford to pay their bills. They saw the disaster at our southern border. They saw one international crisis after the next. And they saw a president who was incoherent at best and couldn't articulate anything from the economy to the border to the international crises. That's why he's not going to be president come January 20th.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about this fascinating CNN panel discussion about Joe Biden's legacy. Now, me personally, I've already told you guys, I think that Joe Biden's legacy is going to be that he was the worst president of the 21st century, right? I really do believe that that is ultimately how scholars and historians in the future, I'm talking about 200, 300 years from now, will see Joe Biden, right? I'm sure, I'm almost certain, right, that it can't get worse than Joe Biden. We still have another, 75 years to go in this century, okay? So I feel like it would be hard to imagine a president being worse than Joe Biden, right? Let's hope we don't get a guy worse than Joe Biden, okay? So Joe Biden ultimately will probably go down as one of the worst presidents in history, to be honest with you guys. And that's his legacy. And the funny part about it is that he dropped out of the race to prevent that from happening. That was the main reason he dropped out, because Biden thought that he could beat Trump. However, Obama and Pelosi and the Clintons decided, no, you have to drop out or else you're not going to get the donor dollars. We're not going to help you win. We're going to guarantee that you lose. And if you lose to Trump, then again, you will go down as one of the worst presidents ever because you were selfish and you didn't drop out and let Kamala Harris beat Trump. However, what we do know now is that Joe Biden dropping out and letting Kamala Harris take over did not help his legacy because Kamala ended up losing and they ended up blaming Joe Biden, right? They said that, well, part of the reason why Kamala lost is because Joe Biden waited too long to drop out. It was the fact that Joe Biden insisted on staying in the race for longer than he should have, knowing that he was mentally deteriorating, okay? So that's the situation that Joe Biden's in right now. And I believe that's why he's pulling a lot of the moves that he's pulling in regards to pardoning his son, doing a whole bunch of stuff the Democrats really don't like. And one of the reasons why is because he just doesn't give a F, right? He's just like, you know what? I'm going to save myself because my legacy is cooked regardless, right? There's nothing for me to salvage anymore. The Democrats have thrown me away. Let me save myself while I still have some power. I think that is what is happening. So without further ado, let's react to the CNN panel in which they're going to get triggered. The liberals are going to get triggered over Republicans giving them a reality check on Joe Biden's legacy.
To be fair, the debate is not the issue. The debate is whether he should have stepped out of the race earlier.
Well, of course he should have. I mean, he should have never run for re-election. Mike is exactly right. When he got asked about regrets, the fact that he didn't say, I regret that 13 American service members lost their lives in Afghanistan, to me, that he can't muster the courage to say that now is a disgrace. Beyond that, he's leaving office in disgrace. I mean, you got less than 20% of the American people now that think the country is on the right track. That's a lower number than it even was on Election Day. And what's happened since Election Day? He pardoned his son, Hunter. He commuted the sentences of a bunch of evil killer thugs on federal death row. Not all of them, just the ones that he wanted to. Didn't even make a principled stand on that. And then he went on vacation, which is where he is right now. This is a failed, disgraced president. And he has never, ever owned up to what happened in Afghanistan and the role that that played in destroying those families' lives and destroying his own presidency.
So I think Donald Trump needs to say.
Yeah. So before this black liberal chimes in with his irrelevant opinion, I just want to say this about this criticism of Joe Biden refusing to drop out early enough to give Kamala or whoever would have been the Democrat Party nominee a fair chance. Well, it's not just Joe Biden's fault. It's also the Democrat Party's fault, because we saw that the Democrat Party does have the power to force the president out of the race, right? Even after the primary was done. Again, Joe Biden had already received millions and millions and millions of votes from Democrat voters, and the Democrat Party still had the power to force him out. So these are the same people who all knew that Joe Biden was mentally declining last year, okay, 2023, when the primaries began. At that point, they could have forced Joe Biden out. They could have made the decision to say, hey, Joe, we don't think that you should run for another term. We need a better candidate. They could have did it at that point, but they didn't do that because they thought that Trump would be in jail in 2024 or that Trump would be taken off the ballot, right? They thought that the election would be totally rigged against Trump. This is why they were comfortable sticking with Joe Biden. And in fact, Democrats went out of their way to finagle their own primaries in favor of Joe Biden. So for Democrats to then turn around and to point the finger at Joe Biden and say, well, he's at fault because he decided to drop out too late after helping Joe Biden, helping him not have any real primary challenge, helping cover up Joe Biden's cognitive decline, the Democrat Party is just as responsible for Joe Biden staying in the race too long.
I'm sorry that 1 million people died in COVID while I was telling people to shine light in their bodies and take disinfectant.
That's false.
No, that's exactly what he said. He said you should shine light in your
we'll Google
own
it after
body.
the show. Again,
right?
I'll go through this with you guys.
And take disinfectant.
All right,
right?
we can fact check
He
it
needs
now.
to, he needs to say he's sorry for that.
He speculated about the effect of light on the virus and disinfectant.
Right, while the doctor stood
Publicly,
behind him.
no,
Like, oh my God, I don't believe it.
Yeah, but again, this has nothing to do with Biden, right? It's amazing. See, when these liberals can't defend Joe Biden, when Biden is getting cooked, when Democrats are getting cooked, the first thing they do is deflect at Trump. Well, what about Trump's first term and him talking about COVID? And it's like, well, you got to understand, the American people have spoken on that. They voted for Trump, right? So clearly the American people are saying we don't give a damn about this and what happened during 2020, right? But again, this is what these people are caught up on because he doesn't have anything to defend Joe Biden with. Joe Biden is indefensible at this point. He's indefensible. So what you do, you default to talk about Trump. You bring up a totally irrelevant point that has nothing to do with the actual subject of the conversation, which is Joe Biden.
And you know what? People told us to stand 6 feet apart and wear masks, and that didn't exactly solve anything. So, look,
Facts. That's the crazy thing. That's the hilarious thing about these liberals. Talking about, Trump spread misinformation during COVID. And it's like, well, actually, the spreaders of the most misinformation during COVID were Democrats, right? It was Democrats and the so-called experts, right? In the liberal media. They spread more disinformation than anybody. Anybody.
At the end of the day here, Joe, you can make this all about Donald Trump. Donald Trump got reelected because Joe Biden was such a disaster on so many fronts. But the fact is, as Scott pointed out, and we had Antony Blinken testify before us finally about the disastrous withdrawal in Afghanistan just 2 weeks ago. And I showed him the report, the 300-plus page report, and I said, sir, this is your legacy. This is your legacy. You own it. You own everything that has resulted from that disastrous withdrawal, starting with the 13 U.S. service members who died. And the fact is, Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, still has not met with those Gold Star families. That is the legacy of this administration and everything that followed from the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the terrorist attack on Israel, the threats in the Indo-Pacific from China, the illicit oil trade to the tune of $200 billion between China and Iran that funds Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. That is their legacy, and Joe Biden owns that, and Scott's right. That should be his biggest regret.
I want to switch gears just a little bit because there's one other kind of odd but interesting thing that Biden mentioned at one of his recent appearances. Here's what he said at the Brookings Institution about his own personal wealth.
Stock market hits record highs. wish I owned a lot of stock. You know, the worst part of all this, I acknowledge it, Brookings. For 36 years, I was listed as the poorest man in Congress. What a foolish man.
I should add, he's also come out against Congress people trading stocks in the same time period. It is an interesting reflection for a man who spent basically his entire adult life in public service, and he's not exaggerating. He has been actually one of the least wealthy people in the Senate for most of his career.
Yeah, the Senate has gotten older, record age. It's a gerontocracy right now in Congress. The average age of a senator is 67, and it has also gotten richer and wealthier. Right? You have to effectively buy a Senate seat. Yeah, there's still a competition. There's a ton of money involved in campaigns and government. And what we're seeing right now is, if you are one of the richest men in the world, you can go right to the top and advise the president of the United States. So the message this sends to the rest of us is money matters, pay to play, and that's going to be how you progress in American society going forward. And I don't love that message, but it's pretty transparent at this point.
I think Biden should not talk about money at all. I think the Biden families got away with murder in the sense that, metaphorically, in the sense that they've really escaped a lot of close scrutiny over their foreign business deals, Hunter Biden, Jim Biden, et cetera. So for Joe Biden to say, I haven't been making any money my whole life, the natural question is then, well, why did your brother, Jim Biden, who's been working in the private sector forever, owe you like $40,000 that was supposedly a repayment of a loan, but was probably some nefarious China deal stuff?
I'm trying to figure out why we're talking about corruption when you've got a convicted...
Here we go. The switch up back to Trump, right? We're talking about Joe Biden, right? We're talking about Joe Biden and the Biden crime family, in which Coleman Hughes rightfully brings up the fact that, hey, Joe Biden talking about how he's so poor and blah, 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 blah. He may not be making money the same way these other people are making money in Congress, but that doesn't mean he ain't making money. Because we all know the Biden crime family's alleged influence peddling operations overseas, right? It took place between Ukraine, China, Hunter Biden, running around selling his father's influence, 10% for the big guy, Tony Bobolinsky. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. So again, Biden pretending as if he's so poor. Oh, I should have took advantage of what everybody else took advantage. No, you took advantage of it. You just did it another way, right? There's multiple ways to get rich in Congress, okay? There's many ways.
Brought up money. You've got a convicted felon that you're sitting here defending, who's getting ready to be the president of the United States.
You know, I cannot wait until this Alvin Bragg conviction is overturned, right? I cannot wait, because that was definitely probably going to get overturned on appeal. I can't wait, because then all these people that sit around and call Trump a convicted felon, they're going to be looking real stupid when that conviction is overturned. They're going to be looking real stupid. Again, I wonder what are they going to say? What are they going to use, right? What are they going to call him? Previously convicted felon Trump, right? That's what they can say. Previously convicted felon. They'll start saying something like that. But this whole convicted felon thing is really mind-boggling to me, because this is the party of defending criminals, right? They're supposed to be defending convicted felons from these types of smears, but yet they're using this type of smear against Trump, even though, again, this is supposed to be the party of protecting felons.
I don't think we can talk about corruption without talking about Donald Trump and talking about the fact that this is a guy who's a convicted felon who's talking about criminals that we need to put out of the country, while at the same time talking about other criminals from January 6th that we need to pardon.
Look, Coleman, I hear what you're saying, and I've told this to Scott too. All of that you're saying is very speculative. I'm still waiting.
Speculative?
After 4 years of Donald Trump.
Did money not change hands?
Scott,
Did it not?
4 years of Donald Trump, 4 years of a Joe Biden DOJ looking into these very things. I'm still waiting to see.
Well, he can't be charged. He's the president,
right? I'm
Joe
still
Biden
waiting.
Can't be charged.
I'm not talking about charges. I'm still waiting to see the proof of Joe Biden enriching himself. I take his brother and his son, perhaps.
I'll give you the direct line.
Otherwise,
I'll give you the
your
direct
colleague, James Comer, could have produced the evidence, and he didn't.
He did. A Chinese company transferred money to a shell company owned by Hunter and Jim Biden that then transferred money directly to Jim and Sarah Biden's shell company that then transferred the money to Jim and Sarah's personal account, who then immediately wrote a check for $40,000 to Joe Biden. So to say that there was no evidence, to say there was no evidence is not true. It's not true.
What I'm saying is that Trump was president for 4 years. He wanted to charge Joe Biden. Why did the charges not come? And I think that still remains an open question. If there is something illegal happening here, there should be charges on the basis of what you're saying, and there have not been.
Well, he just pardoned Hunter
that is
for an 11-year time
period. He pardoned Hunter Biden.
An 11-year time period.
He just wiped the slate.
Hang on, guys.
Jim will be next, by the way.
We're waiting for the charges, and when the charges come, we'll have a conversation about that.
Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. Now, have you guys ever heard Abby Phillip or any CNN anchor, let's be real, any CNN anchor defend Matt Gaetz the way that Abby Phillip just defended Joe Biden? Now, why do I say that? Why do I say that? Because the House released a report on Matt Gaetz that the media has treated as gospel. Oh, well, this must be true. Now, the DOJ, Biden's DOJ, by the way, investigated Matt Gaetz. And the allegations against Matt Gaetz are so bunk, they're so not credible, that they said, nah, we're good, right? We're not even going to mess with this. It's not even worth it, okay? Has Abby Phillip ever rebutted any Democrat talking about Matt Gaetz by saying, well, there are no criminal charges here, guys. So, we can't, it's speculative in regards to what he did or what he did not do. No, she's never done that. But when it comes to the GOP, which has investigated Joe Biden, there was an impeachment inquiry surrounding his business dealings. Okay, there has been evidence to show that money exchanged hands, that Hunter Biden was, in fact, peddling his father's influence overseas. Oh, wait, guys, that's just all speculation. No charges have been brought yet, so therefore, we can't say that a crime was committed. But yet, Biden is president. One of the reasons why Biden wasn't charged when it comes to his classified document scandal is because he is sitting president. That is a DOJ policy that, hey, a sitting president can't be charged. So that doesn't disprove that Biden was participating in the influence peddling operation, right? He was a part of it. And the unfortunate reality is that we will never know, because Biden decided to pardon his son. Okay. He's probably going to pardon his brother next. And it just so happens that Biden pardoned Hunter for the same period of time in which people are questioning whether or not he was engaged in influence peddling. Ain't it funny how that works? Through Biden's actions, he's showing that, there's probably a lot of evidence out there of me and my son participating in these activities. Let me make sure that if he can't be investigated, then I can't be investigated. What they're doing is that they're covering their tracks. They're covering their tracks, which is not something that an innocent person would do. Let's be real. Let's be real. So those charges may never come against Joe Biden, not because they shouldn't be brought, but just simply because Biden at this point has essentially tried to make it a lot harder for there to be an investigation into his family. Now that he's pardoned Hunter, and the fact he was president again made it difficult. So, it's just funny to me how CNN, they always reflexively try to defend Democrats against speculative allegations. But yet when it comes to Republicans, any speculative allegation is something they run with as if it's fact, right? But again, it was hilarious because ultimately in the day, everybody knows that Biden's legacy is cooked, right? It's cooked. It's done. Biden is going to go down as one of the worst presidents in history. And part of the reason why is because not only do Republicans see him as a terrible president, but Democrats also see him as terrible due to the fact that he is to blame, at least in their eyes, for the fact that Trump is now going to be president again. So it's just funny how all this worked out. Biden, at some points, I felt bad for him, but now I don't, because he's a bad person, right? He's actually not a good person. So there's no reason for me to really feel bad about what's happened to Joe Biden and his legacy, because ultimately, in the day, he deserves it. He deserves to go down as one of the worst presidents in history. And almost certainly he will go down as the worst president of the 21st century. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.